There are days when history is not only rewritten, it is lit up, and there are moments when people not only hear the call from heaven, but also see someone who has responded. May 18th, 2025. In the heart of 1,000-year-old Rome, thousands of footsteps are heading toward a single place. Not for a festival, not for a person, but for belief that today someone will stand in the place where Peter once stood. Here, the ring will be given, and one day it will be broken. The pallium will be placed on the shoulder and then removed in tears. But the mission will never be abandoned. This is the beginning of a journey. As Peter's successor, he does not bring a message. He is the message. That fatherhood is still present in a world that seems to have lost all fathers. A father with 3 nationalities. A priest from the dust of the mission. A heart, not a throne, but of those who belong to no one. This is a story of a day, but a day that touches eternity. The story of a man, but a man called to be a living sign of God. The story of a church that seemed tired, but found life in a pope who began not with sermon, but with a presence. St. Peter's Square was still quiet in the early morning light. The first golden rays of the day swept gently through the dome of the basilica, the morning of May 18th, 2025. While Rome was still immersed in the silence of dawn, a heart was awakening, not just that of a city, but of all humanity. A long line of faithful is entering the square, many from all over the world, carrying rosaries, flags, pictures of saints, from the cold north to the Amazon jungle, from urban New York to rural Kenya. Today, all eyes are on one place, where the new Peter will be proclaimed. More than 130 international delegations from governments, Orthodox churches, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists are present. This is not just an inauguration ceremony, but a declaration that the world still believes in unity. Heads of state, church representatives, and images of cloistered monks and disabled people are mixed in the guest seats. There are no more geographical boundaries. There are no more class gaps. All are gathered here, under the shadow of Peter, like lost sheep finding their shepherd. The fisherman's ring is placed on red velvet, the light shining on the carving of St. Peter. That ring, a humble circle but bearing the weight of heaven. Every pope receives one, and at the end of his life it will be destroyed as a mark reserved for him alone. Just a month ago, the world bid farewell to Francis, the Pope of Mercy. Today his successor, Leo XIV, continues that path, not with power, but with humility. Transition. Leo XIV appears for the first time in the Pope Mobile, waving to the crowd. Not a politician, not an orator. He comes as a father in the silence that brings the word of God. The square at its most crowded. The faithful weep, pray, chant, Viva el Papa. A crowd that asks for nothing, only to see one person. A pope, a visible image of the invisible. The choir sings softly, Tu es Petrus. In the midst of the chaos of war, division, and crisis of faith, there is still a fulcrum. Today, in the heart of the church, humanity has rekindled hope with a waving hand and an open embrace. But the new pope carries more than the name Leo XIV. He carries a story of mission, of identity, of a journey through the extremes to the throne of Peter. And that story begins in an unfamiliar place, Peru. The portrait of Pope Leo XIV on the Vatican balcony gradually fades to a young image of him in Chicago, a humble seminarian in black cassock, entering the seminary. Robert Post, a simple name but destined for an extraordinary journey. Born in America, missionary in Peru, minister in the Vatican. One man, 3 worlds, but one united heart. Robert Post is ordained bishop in Peru, flanked by the American flag, the Vatican flag, and the Peruvian flag. Maps of 3 countries appear on the screen, merging into a symbol of the keys of St. Peter. When asked where he belongs, he just smiles. I belong to those who need me most. The dusty roads of Montserrat, children laughing, old people praying. He appears among them, dressed in a gray cassock, holding a Bible. In what they call forgotten land, he chose to stay, not as a dispenser of grace, but as someone who learns to love through the cracks of poverty. Interview with local people, voiceover. He did not preach with words, but with his eyes. He ate with us. He prayed with us. He cried with us. Me. He knelt in prayer before a simple altar made of mixed wood, with wax candles burning at an angle. Outside, children sang in Quechua. There, the shepherd learned how to be a shepherd before leading his flock to God. His personal library in the Vatican, a library of old books, filled with footnotes, handwritten sermons, and unfinished theological manuscripts. In the midst of an austere life, he never stopped thinking. A discreet theologian, he did not use knowledge to argue, but to deepen love. He once said, "If doctrine does not lead to love, it is a dead memory." Inside the Institute of Liturgical Music, he listened to a small choir sing the Regina Caeli. His face was filled with joy. For Leo XIV, music was not just a liturgy. It was a path to the soul. Music could save people from cooling their faith, and music could bring a people back to God. Insert the words of the director of the Vatican Music Academy. He did not love music because it was beautiful. He loved it because it made God close. Interlude. Hundreds of parishioners in a poor Peruvian church sing, in unison, a hymn taught by Pope Leo XIV himself. Their faces are radiant. He walks slowly down a narrow alley in Montserrat. His aged hand shakes each person's hand. The screen fades to the present. He stands in the middle of St. Peter's Square at his inauguration. The church today has a pope who carries the same posture. No hurry, no majesty, just steadfastness, like an oak tree that has rooted itself in the dust of missionary winds. When he put on his fisherman's ring, it was not a symbol of authority. It was a vow to continue casting his nets, not in the ocean, but in the depths of souls that have lost faith. Outside St. Peter's Basilica, the bells rang. A smiling child waved to the Pope. He turned, smiled, and placed his hand on his heart. From the dirt road of Montserrat to the steps of the Vatican, from the poor singing to the chanting of the hymns, and everything was prepared for this moment. Backslashing when the ceremony began, and history was written again by the hands of a true shepherd. From the stone steps of St. Peter's Basilica, the solemn procession entered. In the hands of the deacons, the pure white pallium, the fisherman's ring, and the open book of the gospel. The morning light filtered through the smoke of incense. In the Catholic Church, there are symbols that need no explanation. They live on the sacred memory of 2,000 years of faith. And today they speak again. The pallium, the white strip of wool, symbolizes the shepherd carrying the flock on his shoulders. And the fisherman's ring, engraved with the image of St. Peter, is not only a mark of power, but also a humble commitment to cast nets tirelessly into the sea of human souls. The choir resounds in Latin and Greek. An Eastern priest reads the gospel in Greek. The camera pans slowly over the thoughtful, emotional faces of the pilgrims. From its two sources, Latin and Greek, East and West, the church is like a body breathing with both lungs. And today, that body is resurrected in song, prayer, and deep awe. It is not music. It is memory. It is not language. It is the apostolic legacy that resonates in today's generation. Leo XIV stands at the pulpit. Behind him, a soft light falls from the dome of the cathedral. The camera focuses on his eyes, his hand resting on the Bible. In a world full of voices, today he chooses to whisper, not to shake the square, but to touch the heart. He recounts the journey of St. Peter, from a frightened fisherman on the shores of Galilee to one who stands firm in the storms of faith. And then he asks himself, am I, my successor, humble enough today to be called Peter? The consecrated host is raised amid a cloud of incense. Leo XIV recites the words of consecration. A slow-motion shot sweeps over the kneeling crowd, some in tears. This is the most sacred moment. Above all thrones, there's only one throne, the altar. Above all powers, there's only one saving power, the Eucharistic sacrifice. In that moment, the Pope does not stand above, he bows. He does not rule, he offers. The universal prayer is recited in many languages, French, Portuguese, Arabic, interspersed with images from war zones, such as Ukraine, Myanmar, Sudan. Religious representatives bow their heads in silence. In this square in the heart of the Vatican, all prayers become one. A prayer for peace, for the suffering, for the forgotten poor. The Pope is not only the pastor of Catholics. He is the one who carries in his heart all humanity, including those who do not know that they are being prayed for. The Pope intoned the final words of the Eucharistic prayer. Per ipsum, et cum ipso, et in ipso, through him, with him, and in him. The crowd responded, Amen. When this word is spoken, everything belongs to God. Faith is no longer a concept. It is an action. Communion is no longer a wish. It becomes a reality. In that moment, the sacredness is not in the splendor of the ceremony, but in the smallest piece of bread, in the most silent gesture. Leo XIV steps away from the altar, toward the entrance to the square. Peruvian children sing hymns by the fence. He pauses, placing his hand on his heart. But the liturgy does not end at the altar. It only begins where men truly set out into the deep. And with Leo XIV, the journey of evangelization now begins in the truest sense. Our Pope is about to set out, not only for the church, but for the world thirsting for light. St. Peter casts his nets on the Sea of Galilee. The scene shifts to Leo XIV emerging from the altar with the pallium on his shoulder and his gaze on the crowd. Long ago, the Lord said to Peter, "Put out into the deep and let down your nets." Today, those words resonate, not for one man, but for the whole church. Leo XIV did not take a throne. He took a boat on the ocean of the times. The waves are still there, but the mission remains the same, to set out. Pope Leo XIV in his homily, the sunlight gently shining on his face. Interspersed scenes. Faithful from many ethnic groups, religious, lay people, homeless people attending to Massachusetts. In his homily, the Pope did not only speak of God, he spoke of those forgotten by the world. He called for a church that is open, not to receive more numbers, but to welcome those who are lost. The church is not a fortress. The church is a field hospital, and each of us is a nurse, a companion, an apology for the wounds of the times. Flags of various countries fluttered in the Vatican Square, interspersed with images of Catholic communities in Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, Southeast Asia. Leo XIV is a pope with 3 nationalities, but in his heart, no nationality was greater than the title Child of God. Every community, every identity, every ethnicity is a letter in a universal litany, and the Pope is the one who joins each syllable into a single song, the song of love. Syrian children, Ukrainian widows, elderly people clinging to the railings of churches. Leo XIV standing silently in prayer, close-up of his hand, gently squeezing the hand of a disabled person. The Pope cannot be everywhere, but his eyes go where no one wants to look. His heart breaks for the cry that no one hears. We cannot preach the gospel unless that same gospel reaches those who suffer the most. The Pope gives his final blessing, close-up of his raised arm, the ringing of bells, the silence of the crowd. This blessing does not stop in the square. It crosses the ocean, enters hospital rooms, refugee camps, prisons, drug rehabilitation centers, where people may not necessarily believe in God, but are still loved by him. This is the true gospel, a God who has no borders, and a church that kneels beside those who have no strength to stand up. Leo XIV slowly left the square, the sky turning the colors of dusk. A child raised his hand and waved. He stopped, touching his chest, as a sign that his heart was also waving. Mission does not begin with preaching, but with mercy, not from the sanctuary, but with concrete people. Leo XIV set out, but not far from the church, but deeper into the world, and with him, the church also put out to sea. When the world was full of screams, he chose silence, not because he was powerless, but because only in silence can prayer reach heaven. Peace does not come from weapons. Peace begins with a heart that is silent for others. He did not pray according to policy. He prayed according to the beat of his heart. Each land is called not because of news, but because there are people suffering, waiting to be remembered. And today they are called by their true name, children of God. After Mass, the faithful remained in the square. Some laughed, some cried, some knelt in silent prayer. A young African woman lit a candle. An old European man held the hand of his grandson. Faith is not a feeling. Faith is when people keep walking, even when they do not see the light ahead. Today, thousands of people have come to the Vatican, but millions more will leave, carrying only one thing, the hope that was kindled by someone who stooped down for them. Pope Leo XIV left the square, the evening light streaming through the dome of St. Peter's. The screen cuts to Catholic communities around the world. A mass in Manila, a prayer group in New York, a small chapel in the Congo. He is where he belongs, the heart of the church. But the church is not the same anymore. For each person has seen, heard, touched something bigger than himself. A pope and a God, so close that everyone can see himself in it. Bells ring on the roof of the basilica. Children play with the monks. A little girl climbs on her father's shoulders, waving toward the square. Leo XIV turns, touches his heart, and smiles. There is no more eloquent sermon than a heart that lives for others. There is no need for a call to mission. A look like that is enough. A raised hand, a gentle smile, that is the most silent and powerful command the church has ever heard. And then Leo XIV entered the apse, and the world came out with the joy of those who knew they were not alone. Habemus papum, we have a pope. Then after few seconds, habemus spes, and we still have hope.